Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and today we have a bit of a low-tier train wreck of a battle for you. This is a Tier 3 battle on the North American server, hence the preponderance, that's a good word, I really should use it more often in conversation, the preponderance of bots on both teams. There are actually only 6 players involved in this match, 3 on each team, and one of them is Thunderstruck 1 in the US Navy Tier 3 Dreadnought battleship, the USS South Carolina. I really hated playing this ship when I first started playing the US Navy battleships. Don't forget that when World of Warships was in beta test, initially at least, the only battleships in the game were the Japanese, and the only carriers in the game were the US Navy. And a patch was introduced which saw Japanese carriers and American battleships, and naturally everybody was very keen to play the American battle wagons. The only problem, for me at least, was that first you had to play the USS South Carolina. And I can clearly remember thinking that the only good thing I could say about the USS South Carolina was that at least it wasn't the Kawachi, the Japanese Tier 3, which is utterly dreadful, and remains utterly dreadful to this day. The South Carolina, however, it's not that bad. You know, this was actually the first dreadnought battleship to be laid down. A lot of people think that that honour goes to the British HMS Dreadnought, but HMS Dreadnought was the first dreadnought battleship to be built. Carolina was actually, well, they started construction of Carolina first, but British shipbuilders completed the Dreadnought in record time. Now, in some ways the South Carolina is inferior to the Dreadnought. It didn't have the Dreadnought's turbine propulsion for one thing, so the South Carolina is incredibly slow by American battleship standards. Oh, let's just observe the bot destroyers suiciding against each other at the start of the match. Did you know that there were 2 different standards of AI for the bot ships in World of Warships? And the reason that there are bots in this match, it's not a co-op battle. This is a random battle. But it's on the North American server. This is Thunderstruck 1's North American server account, and thanks to the lower player population and the fact that, well, playing low tiers isn't amazingly popular in the first place, the matchmaker tends to have to populate a lot of the games at this kind of level with bots. But there are bots in World of Warships, and then there are bots. I mean, these bots are the fairly standard co-op battle type of bot, which are, well, and this is being generous to them, as dumb as a box of rocks. The bots that you get in PvE operations are a lot smarter, noticeably so. Although they are constrained by having to generally follow a script, but how they achieve their objectives according to that script, they're a lot more capable. Wargaming did experiment with putting the new AI from operations into the bots in co-op battles, which are the bots that are being used here in this random battle to flesh out the player numbers. So they tried the new, enhanced, much more capable operations AI bots in co-op battles. I wouldn't go so far as to say that the experiment was a failure. It certainly worked, but the bots were just too good. Co-op battle win rates dropped dramatically, and I'm not just talking a couple of % here. So that's why the bots that you see in co-op battles, because most co-op battles, I don't know if you've ever played one recently, they're usually over in 3 or 4 minutes, because everybody just charges forward and suicides into each other, and whichever players are left alive clean up whatever's left. The Nassau up ahead on the enemy team, that's an enemy player. The Dresden that Thunderstruck is bringing his guns to bear on is not. This is another bot. In case you're confused, you can always tell the difference because the bots have a colon in front of their name in order to differentiate them. The more eagle-eyed amongst you may have already noticed that Thunderstruck's team, even at this early stage in the battle, when he's barely had the chance to get his guns fired, are already down to their last 4 players. And only 2 of those are actually players. One of the players on his team, in the Novik, has already managed to get himself killed, torpedoed, by a bot. You know, I don't want to be too critical here. The guy was in a Tier 2 cruiser. There are any number of different reasons why you could have failed so hard this early. I mean, it's only a tier 2 cruiser. It might be the highest tier thing that he has. He could have only played less than a dozen games of World of Warships. You've got to learn somewhere. That doesn't mean it isn't funny, of course. Because it is, which is why I'm laughing. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Oh, and they've lost another one. You're about to see a stark example of just exactly how stupid the bots are, both in co-op battles and when they're pressed into service to make up the numbers in a low-tier random battle like this. Here comes the French Tier 2 destroyer. Yes, it's a bot. That thing has a 2.8 second rudder shift and a 31 knot top speed. And one of the ways in which the USS South Carolina was distinctly inferior to HMS Dreadnought was its speed. It didn't have turbine propulsion. This thing was slow. But even though Thunderstruck isn't even managing a speed of 15 knots, the bot was still not smart enough to be able to get out of the way of a Dreadnought battleship in time. Fresh out of the box, the USS South Carolina only has a top speed of 15.8 knots. And even when fully upgraded, it won't go any faster than 18. Now this is a rare moment, or it was until the Chester died, because at that point, for I think the first time in this game, we had 4 of the 5 surviving actual players in the game all in the same screenshot at the same time. Unfortunately, the Chester was sunk, which means that Thunderstruck is the last player on his team and he only has 1 bot in support. The Yumikaze back there is a player, the Nassau back there is a player, and one of the 2 Chesters in front of him is also a player, although the other one obviously is not. So Thunderstruck and the only other players left in the battle are all now within shooting distance of each other, and most of them are shooting at him. And he has just taken a torpedo of the 4 fired at him from the Yumikaze, who is circling around and opening up with his guns. And don't forget, now here at Tier 2 and 3, destroyers tend to reload their torpedoes in 30 seconds or less, so the Yumikaze is definitely the biggest threat here. But this is where Thunderstruck is going to be able to take advantage of the one biggest design superiority that the USS South Carolina enjoyed over HMS Dreadnought. All of the main battery turrets were super firing. And what that means is that all of the main battery turrets were mounted right down the centre line of the ship. Not, as in HMS Dreadnought and the German Tier 3, the Nassau, with some of the turrets, anything up to half of the turrets, being mounted in the wings or along the waist of the ship, which you're unable to bring to bear on target on the other side of the ship. The South Carolina could always point all of its guns at the same target. In World of Warships, the South Carolina also enjoys the best range of any of the Tier 3 battleships, although that's not really going to help him much in this battle. Not at the kind of engagement ranges that we're talking about here. I mean, this fight's taken place at the kind of range where you could give the helmsman a Model 1903 Springfield rifle, and he'd probably be able to do some damage. Did you notice he just scored the High Caliber award? When he had 46,000 damage done. That's all it takes to get a High Caliber at this kind of level. And the good thing about being at ultra close range like this is that even these guns can't miss. Of course, the bad news is that when you're firing at extremely thinly armoured Tier 2 cruisers like the Chickamauer, even though all 8 shots hit, all 8 were over penetrations. Now clearly at this point, Thunderstruck wants to deal with that Chester, preferably before the Nassau turns up, because those are the last 2 players on the enemy team. And the Chester is clearly thinking, well hang on, he's the last one left, if I ram him, we win. But the act of bringing the ship onto a ramming course means that he's now angling his armour, and that means that it's actually going to arm the armour-piercing shells rather than simply have them over-penetrate. And there's the Kraken Unleashed award. And now, you're about to witness a testament to just exactly how stupid the AI is, and how incredibly slow the South Carolina is, because even at maximum tilt, chasing a reversing destroyer, he's barely able to catch up to him. That destroyer, by the way, has had ample opportunities to do a drive-by torpedo attack on the South Carolina here, but instead, for at least the best part of the last minute, and there's yet another Die Hard award. But yes, for the best part of the last minute, rather than using its torpedoes, that destroyer decided that the best possible thing it could do under the circumstances was to slowly reverse away from Thunderstruck 12 while plinking away at the bows of his dreadnought battleship with its forward turret-mounted 102mm gun. That's the standard of AI that sank one of the players on this team within the first 3 minutes of the match. Hello, what's going on here? Why is Thunderstruck 12 just randomly firing one of his turrets into the island up ahead? Well, he did it to find out where that guy was. He was undetected at the time. He suspected there was somebody on the other side of the smoke screen. Fired one of his turrets, and because of the battleship's smoke firing penalty, he was immediately detected by the Chikima over there, and since it's a bot and it didn't know any better, it started shooting at him, which revealed its position. Quite. Yes, I know Akazuki was very clever. Akazuki was impressed. Slightly bigger threat, however, is the Nassau down there. Last surviving player on the enemy team, and yet did you notice that the Nassau only fired one of its turrets? Let me just take you back in time and show you why he only fired one turret, and you'll understand the mistake that the Nassau just made. Here's the point where Thundershark determined the location of that Chikima by firing through the smokescreen. Now, at this point, the Nassau hadn't actually been seen for about a minute or two, because he was travelling this way, past the islands, in order to try to intercept Thundershark. However, Thundershark was spotted by the Chikima, and so the Nassau thought to himself, I'll be sneaky and I'll sneak around behind him instead. But in order to do that, he had to pull a sudden and hard turn to starboard. But all of his guns were pointing to port, with the exception of one of his waist turrets, which couldn't point to port because it's on the starboard side. Remember, this is a pre-dreadnought battleship. So he popped off that one shot, well, two shots from that one turret, and now he has to wait for all the rest of his turrets to rotate 180 degrees. Meanwhile, Thundershark's guns are all pointing in the correct direction, and unlike the Nassau, Thundershark doesn't have high explosive loaded. However, on the off chance that the Nassau is taking the opportunity to switch ammunition types while the turrets swing around, Thundershark decides that it's probably the wisest course of action to make the most of the fairly decent armour that the South Carolina has and angle it against the Nassau's 11-inch guns. But he really needn't have bothered, because he's still firing high explosive. Thundershark, of course, is not. The Nassau is not angling, and this is point-blank range for a battleship. Oof. That one is unlikely to polish out anytime soon, and that just leaves, well, he's earned practically every other achievement in the book so far in this battle. Can we also get a close quarters expert? Yes! Yes, we can. So, was that an impressive achievement? Well, he did do nearly 83,000 in a tier 3 battleship. I mean, that is kind of impressive. And in one way, at least, you could argue that he did single-handedly kill every player on the enemy team. It's just that there were only 3 players on the enemy team. 3/4 of both teams were populated by bots, but, well, that's the nature of tier 3 battles on the North American server. So was it an amazing achievement? Not really, no. But was it entertaining? Was it amusing? I kind of think so. And hopefully you guys did too. Because that's it for today. So I do hope you enjoyed it. And as always, of course, take care. And I'll catch you next time.